Hello, everybody, and welcome to Conversations with Deborah Franklin. Y'all, it's gonna be a fantabulous night tonight. It's snow on the ground, child, and I can't wait to talk to y'all about it. We'll be right back with Motivational Moment. Well, hey guys, welcome back. Yes, it is time for Motivational Moment. But first, I have to give a shout out to Zafia Bryant for hosting a phenomenal workshop this weekend. She is the CEO of Bryant Educational Leadership Group. And this weekend, they hosted a weekend for college students to come in and hone in on their skills for business empowerment. They had guest speakers. Man, April Ryan was in the house. Yes, your girl was on the same ticket as April Ryan and Bishop William Murphy. This event was amazing because the overall topic for the whole weekend was leading by crazy faith. And it was cool to see how they intertwine business with the faith, which is normally equated to a religious theme, because so that made it really cool. And so of course, you know me, your girl went in, and my topic for my workshop was shattered pieces make mosaics. And a lot of times people are like, I said, if you think about a mosaic, it's not really art. It's just a lot of different pieces that they put together, whether they're squares, rectangles, oblongs. It doesn't matter how long, how short. They're all put together and they're made into one piece of art that is really beautiful. They can be different colors. They can be different shapes. They can be different textures. But at the end of the day, it makes something, when they put it all together, it makes it into something that is beautiful. And when I taught this particular workshop, it took me by surprise as well, because I had been working on it, and I said I knew I wanted a scripture base for it, and it was really messing me up. Y'all know I try to make everything link back to some type of scripture, so that way you can get some type of something to reference it by. We always want to give all this advice, but we don't want to give any scriptural reference. And the scripture that really tripped me out, that God even dropped this into my spirit, was all the way back in Ezekiel 1-14. And it messed me up, because of those of you that grew up in the church, especially grew up in that good Black Baptist church, you know about Ezekiel in the valley of the dry bones. You never knew. That was the only time you really got an anatomy lesson in church, because the preacher would be quick to say, now he spoke to them bones, and the foot bone connected to the ankle bone, and the ankle bone connected to the leg bone. He went through this whole thing because he was told to prophesy to these bones in this valley. And what they failed to tell us is that Ezekiel, this was not something that actually happened. It was a dream. And then I posed this question to my young people that were in my class. What would you have done if you had that dream? What if you had seen that dream? Would you have gotten out of that dream that you were supposed to have faith, that you were supposed to be obedient, that you were supposed to be able to speak to your situation and it's supposed to change? Would you have received that like Ezekiel did? Would you have seen that all these shattered pieces, that once they started to come together, made something beautiful? Oh my God. It was amazing to get that revelation and share that with those young people, because what those pieces, and I have to go to Ezekiel 37:1. It said, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. Y'all, your valley, everybody has been through this valley situation where it looks like everything is dry. Nothing is going on in your life. Nothing is happening. It feels like you're the only one there. It feels like that everything is closed in on you, because a valley usually has mountains up above it or something that's blocking you in. You're like in that low place. And then when you see that you're in the valley, you're like, oh my God, where are you? Why am I here by myself? Why am I going through this situation? And then I just started to think about these shattered pieces of our lives. You know, you look at these shattered pieces, whether it be you had a miscarriage, whether it be you got pregnant out of wedlock, whether it be you're having sexual identity issues, whether it be that you're lying, that you're cursed, that you cheat, that you do all these different things. And then you start to think about, oh, but I do have my health. I do have my strength. Guys, these are your shattered pieces. And if you start to think about, you have to learn to speak to that situation and not dwell on that thing that's pulling you down, because a lot of times, and like I shared with them, you can't lead by the crazy faith because you're so busy dwelling on what's holding you back. What is clouding your mind, your thoughts, your beliefs? What is taking you out of what is changing your direction? This is why we cannot make the mosaics of our lives, because we tend to hone in on those shattered pieces that we think are so shattered and they shouldn't be a part of us. But guys, those shattered pieces have to be a part of our mosaic, because at the end of the day, if we can't prophesy to somebody else, if we can't teach somebody else, or even be able to share our testimony of how we got over what we have been through, then what are we doing this for? You have got to learn to speak to that situation. Tell that whatever is holding your mind down, whatever somebody has said against you, whatever, and then that biggest thing, that self-doubt, you have got to be able to minister to yourself that you cannot go through all of these things and not come out as a winner. You have got to be victorious in the situation, because a lot of times we are our own biggest enemy. We tend to tear ourselves down before anybody else does. Everybody else is trying to push you up, but you in the corner to, I can't do this, I can't do that, and you're just merely making yourself feel so bad about yourself because of the experiences that you have been through. But guys, you please own up to it. Own it. Because when you own it, you're able to overcome it. And when you can overcome it, then you can move on to higher heights. Remember, last show, we talked about favor. We talked about faith. But now tonight, we're talking about obedience. You have got to be obedient to what is being laid before you. Just because the situation feels like you're in a valley, guys, guess what? It rains in the valley. Spirits reign in the valley. Deliverance reigns in the valley, because once you get that deliverance, then you're going to be able to climb that mountain and rise to the top, because that's where you're going to pull on your energy. You pull on your energy of everything that you have succeeded, everything that you've overcome, because that is where we have to be. Remember, this is your year to execute and manifest. When you execute, you're going to have to look over all those things, because in order to get that manifestation and move to that next level, you have got to be ready to run the race to the end. All right, guys, we'll be right back with you with our guest, Natalie.
I'm wonderful.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I am so glad to have you back on the show because the last time you were on, we just ran out of time. We had some connection issues. We had all kind of stuff going on. And I was like, y'all, we got to get her back in. We've got to get her back in because she had a lot to say. We just didn't have time to get through it all. So how's everything been going with you?
Everything is coming along well. Happy New Year. I'm
You
excited
too.
about what God has in store for the year, and I know you probably are as well. I like the new hairdo.
Thank you. It's a little messed up tonight, but you know how that go. We had to go with it, but thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I was like, I can't wait to get these. I got all these different looks. I'm about to figure out which one I want to go with.
It doesn't matter. Pick one and go with
Yes.
it.
Awesome. So you have a lot going on. You have a lot going on, and for those that don't know, Natalie just does it all. I just like got excited when we were talking the last time, and I think we were talking about women. How can we change ourselves to be where we need to be for this year for 2019? And tonight, I kind of titled this show about let's make it happen. It's the second week, I think. Yeah, the second week, and we need to figure out how we're gonna make it happen and how we can take it to that next step in what we're doing. But one thing that I have realized is that a lot of times we think that people aren't making it because they don't have the skills, they don't have, let's say, the right pedigree or whatever, but some of them are just not happy. What can we do as women to start to change that conversation around about being happy because we're not making it? What can we do?
Good question. And I actually feel like I was talking to my sister about this today
Oh,
about
wow.
finding happiness, right? And I think one of the things that we need to do as a woman is to just really take time to be with ourselves. We often are overextended, we're overgiving, we're over nurturing, we're doing and spending less time being. And so
Wow.
my sister shared that with me today about some things, and she said, I don't know if I'm happy with this. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, this is something that we all as women need to really assess, because sometimes, Deborah, what happens is we start to feel unsettled, not at ease, not at peace, and we just keep going. We just keep going, right?
Right, right.
Versus kind of sitting with ourselves and really assessing where we are and how we feel about things in our lives. And I think that's the starting point of really trying to find your happiness and where it is.
Now, you said sitting with yourself. What exactly do you mean with that? Because a lot of times we think we sitting with ourselves. We think we've had that conversation. But what are some tools should I be using? I mean, just like some intentional tools to just jumpstart that quote unquote getting to know who I really am.
Good question. I would say when I say sit with yourself, I oftentimes encourage women to sit quietly, silently, with no distractions. That is when you really can tune in to your own thoughts. You can tune in to how you're feeling. Sometimes when someone asks you how you feel, you go to the famous, I'm good, I'm okay, everything's fine. And most of the time when I talk to a woman, I don't even allow her to give me that answer, because she says it before she's even aware of it, right? It's the first thing that comes out of her head, out of her mind, out of her mouth. And so I would challenge you to sit with yourself, really to get quiet and still. Now, I'm going to tell you that's a challenge,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't like to do that. We don't like to get quiet and still. I remember, like, when I first started trying to be quiet and still, Deborah, the noise in my head was loud, okay? And that's what oftentimes we're trying to avoid, all the noise. But once you find the ability to do that, and practicing it might look like giving yourself 15 uninterrupted minutes every day. That's one way
15
to sit with
minutes.
yourself.
15
15
minutes?
minutes. And that sounds like a little bit of time, right? But
It does.
for many women, they say, Natalie, I can't find 15 minutes. I don't know where I'm going to be able to do that. And I said, wait a minute, there are 24 hours in a day and you can't find 15 for you. But in that,
Wow.
you also can journal. Listen, you get quiet, you get still, and just start journaling your thoughts, journaling your feelings. No rules to it. Just whatever comes up for you, writing it down is another practical tool, Deborah, that I would recommend.
And I like the journaling piece. I do like the journaling piece. But let's go back into um what you were saying about getting quiet and the noises of our head, because I'm thinking about my girlfriends who would say, I have kids, I got to work, and I have to sit still. So what are some tools, for lack of a better statement? I get journaling, but sometimes I still hear the voices when I'm journaling. But what are some tools to quiet those voices that are going on? I got to go to the store. I got to go buy groceries. I got to go buy some shoes. Little Johnny need to go get the braces tightened up. And then I got to go to work. Then I got to get to work and I got to change the coffee filter. I mean, that's little dumb stuff. I got to go buy something to mop with. How do I turn all of that off, and so I can really hear me?
Ooh, good stuff. Good stuff. It really takes practice. I mean, it sounds simple, but it really is. It really takes practice. One of the things that I try to do on a daily basis is write out my to-do list. Because sometimes you're right, we have a lot going on, but if I can get it out on paper and I just put all the things, I divide it up into sections. I have two businesses, so I put the two businesses on there. And I have my personal stuff. Then I have home life. And I just write everything that I can think of, okay? That's one of the tools that I do that kind of helps me to get the stuff out of my head. The other thing is when I talk about, sitting with yourself and journaling and really quieting yourself, it really takes practice. This is not something that you're going to get overnight. I can tell you that.
Right.
But the other thing about the voices in your head, you gotta know what those things are, right? And I teach a lot of women about the inner noise in our head. And a lot of times it's very critical. And understanding what's going on and why it's going on helps you to be able to do something about it, to be able to, what I call, turn the volume down on the noise. And understanding that, yes, but it takes a lot of practice. It's almost like anything else you've learned in life. It came with practice.
Right, and I'm glad that you said that. You said about turning the inner noise down, because a lot of times we don't even realize we have inner noise. How can we recognize inner noise from just stuff that I got to do? Because there has to be a way to be able to tell the difference. And I know that's a lot in our psychosis. But as women, we deal with so much all day. Even whether we have kids or don't have kids, or are in a relationship, not in a relationship, there's still so many different things. But how do I know what's noise and what's not noise?
Ooh, yes. You get me excited because you're moving me into the inner critic. Well, let me explain what the inner critic is, because a big part of the noise that we hear in our heads has been studied, and it's called the inner critic. And the inner critic is the part of your personality that judges you, that calls you names, and that puts you down, okay? And it shows up in two ways. It either shows up in a very critical way, kind of aggressive, or it shows up in a very persuasive way, okay? Wow. And believe it or not, for many of us as women, we have two famous, common inner critics. And one is called the to-do list, the ultimate to-do list, right? And she shows up in your life and she basically convinces you that you have all this stuff to do.
Right.
And you got to get it done now. Everything is important and you have to do it. And I love talking about that inner critic, because when she shows up, she puts you in this place of thinking you have to get it all done. And if you don't get it all done, you feel guilty. How many of us have done that, right?
Oh, girl, don't even try it, honey, because I was getting ready to talk about that, because that to-do list, a lot of times we want to make it simple. Like your to-do list in your head, and what's criticized, and it's like, you haven't been married, you're not married if you're not married. Or if you're married, you haven't had children. If you have children, then you got to figure out what college they want to go to. Then you got to figure out how I'm going to pay for college. And it's like, how do we start to quiet those things down? Because a lot of times women start to feel like, especially once you get a certain age, you start to feel like you are a failure at something. How do we quiet that inner critic down? Because some of those things on that to-do list are unobtainable, or just not going to happen, or will happen when they happen. Maybe I should say it like that. They could be obtainable, but it's going to happen when it's happened. But how do we not criticize ourselves because we have not reached those goals yet?
Oh, you brought into a conversation another inner critic. Her name is, let me introduce you guys to her. Her name is the Achievement Junkie.
Achievement. Okay, I like that.
Yes, that's what she is, and that's what she does. So a lot of the times what you talked about was kind of, this is happening, and then there's something else happening, and there's something else happening. This inner critic. Her name is the achievement junkie. What she does is she has you thinking you have to accomplish all these things. There's another milestone, there's another thing that you have to do. And many times women, when we get into this place, this achievement junkie, she does not allow you to celebrate where you are, right? Because she's always saying, when you get to this place, then you can rest. When you get to this place, then you can relax. Then when you get to this place, you can celebrate. When you get to, it's always, the weapon that she uses is called when you get there.
Wow.
So your happiness, your peace, your security, your joy, all that stuff that we want, that is driving this to-do list, right? And all these accomplishments. She says, when you get there, then you can be happy. Right. We're talking about happiness. That's where we started. And the inner critics that we're talking about will rob you of your happiness. They will make you feel unfulfilled, and they will make you feel stressed. And I think that's what we're talking about tonight, Deborah.
Most definitely. Because even, I guess I'm looking at this whole achievement junkie chick, but even with being the achievement junkie, but sometimes doesn't the achievement junkie have some inner critics? Not inner critics, but outside critics that can trigger this achievement junkie in her. Because I promise you, y'all, everybody know I'm single, I don't have children, but this was the first holiday I have ever had one of the elders say, so when is that time coming? And I'm like, Rrr! Y'all have never asked me this. So I guess they like, well, you done this. So now when you gonna do this? And I was like, well, I had kind of like quieted that thing in me. So how do we handle how can I say this? How do we handle the triggers for some of these inner critics? Because even though we may have turned the volume down, how do we handle the triggers that make that volume come all the way back up?
You're right. People's expectations, right? And what they put on us, people do it all the time. And sometimes it's not their intention, right? It's not what they're thinking about what they're doing. But it happens a lot. And so one of the things that you have to remember is, and I teach a lot about, that someone else's opinion does not have to be your truth.
Wow.
Someone else's opinion does not have to be your truth. And her opinion for you was that she thought you should be doing X, Y, and Z. But that doesn't have to be your truth.
Right.
But if you find out that something someone says penetrates through, is what I call that. If it penetrates through, then it is likely that you were already struggling within yourself. Does that make sense? And so you have to be
what you trying to say, Natalie Warren? That I was having some issues?
I didn't hear what you said.
You trying to say we had some issues already? That is too much. Too funny.
Well, you have to really look at it. So if someone says, you know what, I don't think you could be able to do that.
Right.
If you really are sure that I can do that, right, it won't penetrate through. It'll hit you. Hit you. It might sting.
Right.
But when it penetrates through, it is likely that you have some thoughts about, can I really do this? Is this possible? Maybe this is too much, right? Because you're already struggling. And that's what the penetration comes through. Otherwise, yes, it hits us, but it kind of bounces back off. And so just being mindful, like, what is my truth? And is that their opinion, or is that my truth?
Wow. That's all I can say is wow. Because at the end of the day, we have got to identify whose truth we are gonna listen to.
That's right.
That's amazing. That is amazing. We have some. I want to just give a shout out to everybody that's on Facebook. They are sending us. They are giving us some things, but I'm gonna go back and deal with those a little later. But when we're talking about this inner critic, you also stated that there were 5 steps for dealing with the inner critic. Not 5 steps. It was 5 things to identify the inner critic. Am I correct? What would those be?
First thing is to understand that your inner critic is not you. Ooh. That is so important, because what happens is, and I call it, you befriended her, right? You've been hanging out with sister girl for so long. You didn't realize that wasn't you. That wasn't you. Wow. And so once you are able to recognize that is not you, you can pull you from her. And I call her, and again, they have names, and it really helps you to separate that from you. It's almost like if I were to say someone has cancer, I don't say that they're cancer, right? That's not who they are. They are an individual with cancer.
Wow.
And when we separate that from who they are, then they can feel different about who they are. And so the first step, ladies, and I work on this every day. That inner critic, she shows up, sister girl shows up, but I let her know, wait a minute, this is not me. Then they'll give you the second step. And the second step is you call her out.
Yes.
Call her out.
Yes.
You got to know what you're calling out, right? And so sometimes I'd realize, wait a minute, this is the comparison queen. And she has a function and she's showing up, which is the third step. I think I'm on number 3.
Okay, yeah, because I've been doing it, because we got the achievement junkie. We have the, oh Lord, I missed one. What was the first one?
The ultimate to-do list.
Yeah, the to-do list. The ultimate. Ultimate to-do list. Okay, let me make sure I write that down. Ultimate. Y'all, I'm taking notes. I don't know about y'all. You better pull out your pen and paper, honey. You got to know how to recognize these chicks when they show up. So we got the ultimate to-do list, the achievement junkie, and what's our next one?
The comparison queen. The comparison queen. Yes. She does 2 things to you, Deborah. Let me help you understand. She has you feeling either superior to others, right? So you think, oh, I'm better than such and such.
Ooh.
Or she has you feeling inferior to others, meaning I'm not good enough, I'm not as smart enough, I'm not as pretty enough. And it leaves you in this place where you minimize who you really are.
Wow.
And so what we do is we have to know that the inner critic, here's the hard part, the inner critic has a function.
Right.
She has a function. And guess what that function is? It is something you'll never guess what it is. Her function is to protect you. And what you got to know in this particular step is, what is she trying to protect you from?
Wow.
Okay. And if you learn what she's trying to protect you from, you do the next step, which is you reassign her, right? You give her another task. You give her another task. It's almost like a kid in school who's cutting up and acting the fool. That teacher a good teacher knows how to redirect that child and give them another task.
Right.
And if you put them in front of the class and let them be the class leader, and they are the door holder, whatever their task is, now they're doing something.
Right.
And they're not disrupting the class anymore. And so we reassign her, right? Once we understand what she's trying to protect us from. And so the study of this is really, you got to sit with yourself. That's what I talked about earlier.
Right.
You got to sit with yourself and learn this. Because once you're able to do that, you do the 5th thing that's going to change your life. And you tell that inner critic, thank you, but I've got it covered.
I like that, honey. Tell them thank you. I got this thing.
I've got it covered. And you say thank you from a heart of gratitude, because ultimately she's protecting you. She's protecting you from fear, from rejection, from abandonment, from embarrassment, from shame, all the stuff you don't want to feel.
Right.
But you tell her thank you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I'm visual, so it's almost kind of like I can see where you could be, where the superior or inferior, where the comparison queen, where she's needed. Because sometimes you do have to know that you are in control, that you can do this. It's almost like that inner cheerleader for a certain time. But then I guess when you feel inferior, you got to not let the inferior take over you so much that you feel like you're a failure at everything. Because sometimes you need that inferior to pop up so you can at least question the situation. That makes sense? Am I on the right road?
Or even to know that you have something in you that you didn't know was there. Sometimes you have to feel a little less than to go, wait a minute, I'm a little stronger than I thought I was.
Exactly.
It has a function. Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So we got the ultimate to-do list, the achievement junkie, and the comparison queen. Is there another one?
Oh, there's so many more. Where do we go next? I was talking about the worry wart.
The who?
The worry wart.
Oh.
The worry wart. Listen, she has 2 weapons that you got to know about. One of them is called the personal cloud doom maker. It's like a cloud over your head. You know how sometimes everything is going right and you go, at some point, this feels too good to be true. And you go, the things are just going to have to fall apart at some point because this is too good, right?
Right.
That's called the personal doom maker. It's like a personal cloud that's around you. And then the other weapon that she uses, I love talking about it. It's called the story maker.
Wow.
Ooh, the story maker. You know how many times you tell yourself stories? You know what? I'm going to start my business, and then I'm going to, I'm going to start it, and then nobody's going to buy anything out of my store, and then we're going to go bankrupt, and then I'm going to be living on the streets of New York asking for money. Like, what?
Right. Like, why even started? You just did this and talked yourself completely out of it. It's like you have a doomsday plan. You've already pushed the doomsday button before you even had a chance to do anything. Yes, those kind of people, they drain you.
Yes, that story maker has you in the land of what I call what if. And you are constantly saying, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? You hadn't even started yet, and you already said what if.
Right.
And so that was the next one that I wanted to introduce you all to. Her name is the Worry Wart.
Yeah, you know what? That chick right there, I can't deal with her. So I'm glad I have learned to quiet that one down. Now, she can come in as a defense mode, but I do know how to shut that girl down because I'm like, we can't do this because everything got to be successful this year. So we have gotten some, man, you have given, I hope y'all taking notes, Facebook family, and those that are watching the replay. We have the ultimate to-do list, the achievement junkie, the comparison queen, and the worry wart. And you still said at the end of the day, we still have to tell them thank you. Why?
Yes, because here's the thing.
Why I got to think somebody's going to make me lose my mind?
You want to tell her thank you, though, because for many of us, she got us through some very difficult times in our lives. She really did, right?
Right.
She stepped in a way to protect you. And so her job is to protect. And if you don't know that, you'll mistaken it as she's trying to talk you out of things and persuade you to do things. And that's really not it. So we say thank you out of gratitude, because if we did not have this part of our personality, there would be no human race. We will all be gone.
Exactly.
Because we wouldn't be able to bear the difficult points and times in our lives.
Wow. Now, we have talked about and these things, and then once we learn to do these things, does that eventually open the door to our happy place?
Yes. And the reason it does, because once you're able to turn the volume down on the inner critic, you hear what we know as your inner voice, right? And that is the place of your passion. It is the place of what we call intuition, your gut, and you being able to really follow your heart. But you can't when you have all the other noise, because you don't really know which voice to follow, which is a step that I didn't say, is that you always have the choice to choose what voice you follow.
Wow.
You always have the choice to choose.
Wow. That's major. So you telling me all of this, I make a choice to do this. I make a choice to listen. I make a choice to react. So how do I know I'm making the right choice?
Oh, good question. How do you know the difference? They feel different. Let me tell you, when the inner critic shows up, now she's not always aggressive and critical. Let me help you with that. Sometimes she's persuasive. Like you.
Oh, she kind of sneaky.
Yes.
See, I don't like her then. I already know I'm mad at her.
So you have to tune into how you feel. And one of the things your inner critic, when she shows up, you feel like a spiral kind of on the inside. You feel stressed. You feel overwhelmed. When your inner, I call her your inner wisdom. Okay. When your inner wisdom or your inner voice shows up, right? You feel grounded. You feel stable. You feel expansive. Like it's a whole different feeling. Now your inner voice, or your inner wisdom, as I call it, or your inner voice, let me tell you, will tell you the hard truth.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
It can still tell you the hard truth, but it's in such a way that even though it's the hard truth, it still feels good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so that's how you know the difference. You have to know the difference between the two. Yes.
Wow. Well, Natalie, we have covered a lot. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back with you because we got some more stuff to talk about, y'all. And I know you got this little juicy event that we're going to talk about as well. I'm excited for you about that. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Miss Natalie Gray Warren. are back. We told you we were going to be quick. Now, we have talked about the inner critics. And what are our steps? Or did we, I'm not sure if we covered these, because if we did, then I definitely need to go do a quick rundown. But what are our 5 steps for turning down the volume of these inner critics? I know that we have to tell them thank you at the end, but what are the steps that we should take to turn them down?
All right, let's go over them. I'd love to share it again. So the first step is to know that your inner critic is not you.
Wow.
It is not you. Separate that from who you are. And the second step in that is to understand to separate her from you, and then also call her out. Okay. So it takes some time to really study her. And this is so deep, Deborah, because what I tend to do with women is we draw pictures of her, right?
Yes.
We talk about all of these different ones, and we talk about what the comparison queen looks like, and what does the achievement junkie look like, and visualize in your head, because what I want you to do again is to separate you from her. If you give her personality and you visualize her, you can see when she's showing up. In that, you also are learning her triggers, and that's a whole nother study, right?
Right, like I was saying, my aunt did to me. She triggered that, honey. I was like, "Ooh, yes, Lord." Ooh, I'm tearing up stuff now. You see how it triggered me?
That's right. You got to know the triggers. It's so important. It's so empowering. When a woman understands this, it is so liberating. The third step is to then, once we've called her out, we understand her function. We understand her function is to protect you. Understand it, know it, be able to see it. And why is she trying to protect you? You also want to see, what is she protecting you from? Okay. And then we give her, the next step is to give her another task. We reassign her and say, okay, thank you, but no thank you. Or we say, thank you, I have it covered. But you reassign her and give her another task. And then the final step that I talked about is that you remember that you always have the ability to choose what voice you follow.
Okay, I have a question. When we say give her another task, I think we kind of went over that, but just for clarity, because I was using it maybe like in a business world, but how do I give the inner critic of being superior or inferior? Let's take it to the next step, because I know everybody's ready for a relationship. Everybody wants to do this, whether it's friendship or any type of relationship. But how do I take control of that inner critic, the comparison queen, when we go into this? Because I know women, we do this a lot. And how do we take that superior, inferior when we're approaching relationships?
Okay, good question. Your question was about relationships and how to reassign it. So what we understand is, again, we have to figure out what she's trying to protect you from. And so in relationships, maybe what she's trying to protect you from is disappointment, right? Maybe you are one that you give your whole heart, right? You are just a giver. That's who you are. You can't go halfway in. You're very black or white. And so her function, she might show up in a way, and she oftentimes shows up when you're at a place of making a major decision or taking a risk or going for love. Like those are triggers, big triggers. And so she's showing up to protect you from disappointment. And so one of the things you can do to redirect her or reassign her is you ask, if you weren't protecting me from disappointment, what would I do, or what would I need to do?
Wow.
If you weren't to protect me from disappointment, what would I need to do? And that's when you ask that question, you're shifting from your inner critic to your inner wisdom. And your inner wisdom always knows the answer.
Now, we ain't talk about the inner wisdom. Come on. You done went somewhere else, Natalie. You always do this to me. I think I got one thing figured out. I think I'm on the right road. And then you go and flip the script. So what does that mean, your inner wisdom?
Yes, your inner wisdom is the part of your personality, I believe, that has all of the answers. She is like your inner GPS system, the part of you that's connected to God. And so what happens is your inner wisdom always knows the answers, and she's always guiding and leading you, right? And in that, we ask our inner wisdom. It's a part of you. So if I were to ask you even right now, Deborah, you may say, Natalie, I don't know about this part of my life. I would shift you to say, well, what do you know? That's when you tap into your inner wisdom, right? And you might say, well, this is what, Natalie, what I know for sure is, and I ask you to complete the blank. And in doing that, you're now shifting right? To your wisdom, to your inner knowing, and being able to know what the answer is. And so even in the relationship situation that you asked me about, we first find out why is she trying to protect you from disappointment?
Right.
Then we ask another question. If you weren't protecting me from disappointment, what should I do, or what would I do? And it might say, take small baby steps. That might be the answer that you feel or you get. And then you move in that. And then you ask, I often say, then you ask the next question.
Right.
Okay, so now what I do? What's the next best step for me to do right now? And then you listen, which is what we started off with. You listen for that answer. Now, here's the thing. With our inner wisdom, it doesn't always come with a sound or a voice, right? Sometimes it's just something in our heads. But a lot of the times, it's in how we feel, right? You know how peace is an emotion. But peace is something you just feel. You just know peace. You can't even describe it. I just know peace.
Right.
You get that?
Yeah.
And
no,
so
I totally get it.
Go ahead.
No, that's what I'm saying. I totally get it, because sometimes it's some days you can wake up and you can just like, yes, I'm at peace. I'm happy. Nothing can turn me around. I'm going to do this. But it can be raining outside. It can be storming out. Everything can be going crazy around you. But you're like, man, I'm cool. I'm at peace with this. So, no, I totally get it, because sometimes but at the end of the day, we have to learn to trust our inner wisdom. So what are some tools to learn to trust it? Because I think about a lot of people that, have gone back to relationships that have failed, gone back to friendships that have failed, gone back to jobs that have failed, gone back to a lot of things that have failed, but now they're trying to, quote unquote, give it another chance. But at the end of the day, they're like, do I trust this like feeling that I'm having? I'm feeling queasy, that little funny feeling there, or I'm feeling a little nervous, that little twitch, as old folks used to say. How do I know how to trust that inner wisdom piece for where I am or the situation that I'm experiencing?
Yes, good question, because many of us struggle with trusting ourselves. The first step is about trusting yourself, right? And that is really something that comes with practice. The other thing that you said that was so important is understanding, because you've made one mistake does not mean, or you've made one poor decision, it doesn't mean you're not capable of making good decisions, right? And sometimes we focus on that one time or those 12 times that we messed up, and we tell ourselves, well, I'm not good at making decisions. I don't know. Well, that's not entirely true. At the time that you made whatever decision that you made, it was the best decision you thought at that time. Right? It was the best decision at that time for whatever reason, under the circumstances that you made it. And so the ability to trust your inner wisdom and to trust yourself is really about practice. And it also is you saying, because I made one poor decision doesn't mean I can't make good decisions.
Exactly.
You can.
I love it. I love it. I love it, because so many times we get so caught up as women is on the shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe, sorta, kind of situation, and it's like, how do I move on from that? I have failed at not being able to quiet this inner noise down. How do I move on? What's that next step of moving on from, let's say, taking back the control? How do I take back the control of myself, of my life, of my inner voice? How do I take back control of that? Especially, how do I initiate these steps?
Yes. So one of the things you said that made me just think of something so important is self-forgiveness goes into that. How do I do it? I first have to start with forgiving myself, right? Forgiving myself for maybe the choices that I made. Forgiving myself for not listening. Sometimes we know what to do and we still don't move in it, right?
Right.
Forgiving myself for those times when I totally ignored it, because listen, I was trying to do whatever I wanted to do, but I forgive myself for that. That's one thing to get you back on the path. And then the other thing that really is practice. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Practice. I didn't realize how I was learning all of this before I even had knowledge of what was going on. And so now I know my inner wisdom, and I have grown a relationship with her. It's like every other relationship, right? There is you getting to know an individual and you spending time with that individual. And at some point you become in sync with the individual. You can feel them, you can sense them, you just know what they're thinking. It really takes that as we are cultivating self-trust and that relationship with our inner wisdom. And so that would be the other thing, is really just take out the time. Another important piece that just pops into my head is ask questions. I'm a question person.
Wow.
I'm like, Okay, God, what's the next best step? And I listen for the answer. I expect the answer. Or I might say, today I wake up in the morning, I say, what's the top 3 things that are most important for my business today? And I listen for those 3 things.
Wow.
And it might be something as simple as sending out an email, right?
Wow.
But because I practice this so much, whatever I feel and hear, I move in it. And so again, practice is going to be the major thing.
And one thing that you're saying is that even with this practice, it almost sounds like you're also saying to be intentional with what you're doing, because I think a lot of times we get so caught up with everything that's going around, all the haphazardness, that we forget to be intentional. So, and we call it so many other things, but it's intentionality. So how do we, again, if we learning to sit in this quiet space, we're finding out who we are, but how do we become intentional? Now, does that start, I know you were saying journaling, but does that start with giving myself an intentional topic for a while until I can span off, or an intentional book to read? What do I do to jumpstart me into the right direction?
You gave some really great suggestions.
Look, y'all, let me some suggestions. Look at me. Yes.
You can start with the book. Listen, this is not a new thing, right? So there are many people who have already explored this world of self-discovery and learning yourself and growing and developing and self-development, all of that. So this is not a new arena. Find somebody and follow what they have done or what they offer, right? That's one step. Another thing you talked about being intentional is, again, I talked about asking questions and just really getting clear on what it is that you want. There's a universal principle that if we ask, then we shall receive, right? If we seek, we shall find.
Yes.
If we knock, the door is going to be open. So it is a principle that has that is biblical. And so we have to think about, okay, when I'm being intentional, what is it that I really want? And you being really clear on that. If you're not clear, somebody is already saying, Natalie, I'm not clear. What I do is I ask for clarity. I seek clarity. I am open to hearing. I'm open to receiving. And I really put myself in a position to receive whatever that is without me expecting the outcome. Because that's the other challenge, Deborah. We ask for the question and then we tell the outcome. Like we say, this is the way it should come. And that's just not how it works.
Yeah, because we forget it's 3 answers to a question. It's yes, no, and maybe or wait. And a lot of times when we get the no, we get mad.
Yes.
How do I deal? Okay, we're going to quickly deal with this because Natalie, I promise you, I gave you all this time and we still about to run out of time, because it's like every time you go to one topic, it's like another question pop in my head. So how do we deal with the no from our inner self? Because at the end of the day, how do I know my no is no for real, or my no is coming from an inferior part? How do I tell the difference between the no's that I hear in when I'm trying to figure out what's going on?
Ooh, good question. I think the important piece is, again, about being in tune with your body. A lot of the times, whatever you're thinking or feeling shows up in your body. Mm-hmm. And so it's almost like peace. It's this knowing. It's a knowing, and I can't describe what knowing is. You just know it.
Gotcha.
And so a lot of the times it's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And being able to know that. Sometimes for me, if it's something that's a no for me, I feel, or if I need to say something, I feel something in my throat. I get a lump in my throat. I'm very in tune with my body.
Yeah.
And that lump in my throat is telling me likely I need to say something, right? I need to do something, and I'm not moving in it. So really just, like I said, taking that time out to understand and learn. Mm-hmm. But that is the no. The no isn't that it's not for you. Like sometimes we think no means never. Sometimes no means not now.
Right.
And if we understand that our inner wisdom has our best interest in mind, listen, it's our best interest in mind. And that no might just mean not now, or it might mean move in another direction.
I
and
like
if you would have gotten the yes, you wouldn't have moved in another direction. Let me give you an example. This has happened to me recently. Mm-hmm. So for my last retreat that I did, I prayed about things, and things weren't working out with ticket sales. And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? I asked the question, what's my next best step? Mm-hmm. And the answer that I got was, you'll fill the seats, but it won't be the way you think it will be.
Exactly. Love it.
Now, that was what I needed. Let me tell you why that was what I needed, Deborah, because I was marketing in a certain way, right? And
Mm-hmm.
had I continued to market and go in that way, there were probably going to be about 15 women that wouldn't have showed up in the room.
Exactly.
And had I not gotten that no, because that could have been interpreted as a no,
Right.
it was interpreted as Natalie moving in another direction. And
Exactly.
me doing that got people there that were supposed to be in that room. And I'm so thankful, but I asked that question. And so, yes, no does not always mean never.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because I had a similar experience with a conference that I host, and it was like, okay, God, these I'm not selling tickets, I'm not selling product, but it was like then it was just straight out of nowhere. The event that you're hosting is not for you; it's for the people that paid to be on the ticket. It was like, wow. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, if I don't sell nothing, then I'm good. This is not for me. So that was a cool because the other doors opened because it made me be somewhere else. And a lot of times we have to recognize what's going on. So I totally, totally agree with you. Well, Natalie, we have come to the end. I don't know how we got here so fast, but you got a conference coming up, and I want you to tell everybody how can they find you. Tell us a little. We got three minutes. Tell us about this conference. Tell us who's gonna be there. Tell them how they can get tickets, and then why ain't know nothing about it till tonight? All right, go for it.
We thank you for allowing me to share. We are having Whole Woman, Whole Life conference March 23rd, 2019, in a few weeks, it feels like, in Atlanta, Georgia. And this conference, I teach about wholeness in women, but I brought some other people who I am very close to, my team. And what we're going to do is help women have wholeness in every area of their lives. Every area. So financial wholeness. I want to see you with your health and being whole in relationships. And in the areas of those that are very dear, where a lot of women carry a lot of shame, guilt, and fear, we're
Mm-hmm.
bringing that to this experience. And so in that, you will walk away with what we call, we're going to up level. We're going to up level in your finances, in your mindset. You are going to walk away with some stuff to help you to walk in abundance. And ultimately, what I do best is I help women transform their lives from the inside out. You are going to leave a different person. And so tickets are going to be available starting on the 20th. Oh my God, we're almost
Woo-woo.
there. And the website is www.thewholewomanexperience.com. I would love to have everyone join or just share with people that you know. Thank you, Deborah, for allowing me to talk about Whole Woman, Whole Life.
I love it. I love it. I love it. We're gonna try to make to connect with you about this conference. I'm so excited. All right, Natalie. It has been fun. It has been lovely as always. Love you to life. Have a great one, and thank you for joining us. And y'all make sure that you go to the Whole Woman Conference. Am I saying this right? .com. What was the website again?
The Whole Woman Experience.
The whole woman experience. See, I would have went. Y'all would have went somewhere wrong dealing with me. So I want you to go to the whole woman experience starting on the 21st. Get your tickets, y'all. We got the support. It's in Atlanta, so you already know you got time enough. You can get there real cheap. So go on and get there if you can. All right, guys. It's been fun. It's been real. Love you to life. Follow us on all social media. Y'all get ready because at the end, our January 28th show. Get ready. We are doing vision boards live in the studio. And then the whole month of February is all about relationships. Y'all, we got some relationship coaches coming on here that's going to knock your socks off. But all right, guys, love you to life. Have a great one.